As a fan of Spider-Man, there are a lot of Spider-Man villains I'd love to see still to this day in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. For example, Scorpion, the Chameleon, and even probably more than likely Kraven the Hunter. But there is one Spider-Man villain that has always interested me ever since I saw him in the animated series of Spider-Man with Christopher Daniel Barnes. Morbius. Michael Morbius was a very sick man who had lots of disabilities wrong with him, and in order to accumulate to the disease, a rare blood disease that he had, he decided to turn himself into a vampire. Well, in the same way as Kirk Langstrom from DC Comics, he decided to merge his DNA with that of a bat. And unfortunately, Morbius had lived on as Morbius the Living Vampire. But does the movie with Jared Leto Morbius come to terms with the legendary vampire, or does it measure up to something like Bloodshot or even Marvel's Eternal that came before it? Well, I've done an experiment and I'm here to tell you about my results. Hello and welcome to Lazy Universe Movie Reviews. I'm your host, Lazy Universe, and when I'm not going around killing people as a scientifically engineered vampire, except my teeth are all screwed up, so when I leave bite marks, they can never trace them back to a vampire. Seriously, I have very screwed up teeth. Anyways, I am here in my own little universe reviewing movies, and today it is Morbius. Now, yes, a friend of mine said that I should review Thor, and don't worry, I will get to that eventually. I have a lot technically on my plate for this month, and what makes it good and more of the wiser for me as a host, and you're generally very good cinema critic, is that, well, it's a lot more relaxed than it used to be, I can tell you that much. Because can you imagine me watching all four Thor movies and then trying to review them all at once? That's a headache I wish not to have. But anyways, Morbius was a film that had seen a lot of negative criticism. But despite that, I still wanted to see how Morbius would handle himself, especially in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, did Morbius succeed where other movies have failed? Well, this is my intelligent criticism on this movie. But let me tell you firsthand before I get to my final thoughts later in this video, is that Morbius is not the worst film that I have seen come from Marvel. Keep that in mind as I review this film. Anyways, let's break it down and let's see if we can dissect this vampire. The plot. At a young age, Dr. Michael Morbius had been diagnosed with a rare blood disease, one that was killing him and would forever be killing him for the rest of his life. Until the day he meets a friend named, Lucian, or Milo as he calls him, and he becomes his best friend and is traveling in arms throughout the entire film. Michael Morbius had tried to find ways to cure himself ever since he was born with his rare disease, trying to find loopholes and ways to escaping this hell that he lives in. But when he finds it, he's not exactly sure if what he had found was everything that was supposed to be intended for his plot, especially to heal himself. And Michael Morbius must try to save himself before it's too late and before the monster entirely takes over for Morbius and he loses what he used to be, a human. The plot of Morbius sounded very similar to me when I read the back of the DVD. Kind of in a reference to Blade, which is not a bad thing because I actually do really enjoy the Blade movies, except for Trinity, mind you. But it was nice that they still had this kind of story because Michael Morbius is a disabled person in the Marvel Universe, and we haven't gotten much really to focus on the disabled side of the Marvel Universe aside from, yes, Daredevil, Hawkeye, and Echo, and also Moon Knight. But we haven't really gotten the full side scale as Michael Morbius, and this film does a very great job with its script of handling Michael Morbius as this man who's becoming a monster and has to decide what's more important, being the man or monster. I will admit, though, that eventually the film kind of loses its focus from what it's trying to be. It's trying to be a Marvel monster film. Now, this is probably also because by that Werewolf by at night or Werewolf by Night is a very successful movie on Disney Plus that came out from Marvel too. Morbius does actually manage to ledger up to that franchise because does have a horror universe that people don't know about. That when they did Tomb of Dracula and also the Mummy, the Undead Mummy or something like that, and also yes, Werewolf by Night. So if Marvel is trying to redirect their new horror franchise, Morbius was definitely an interesting take on it. I will say though that while I do like the script, there are a lot of moments that I really don't like. For example, I do not like that they turned Lucian into basically another vampire. His name, Lucian, is loosely translated to that of werewolf. So I was kind of expecting, kind of like, in a sense, the Creature Commandos where he would become a werewolf. Anybody remember that old DC comic team, Creature Commandos? No? I think it's getting a movie pretty soon. Ring a bell? No? Well, I tried. But I didn't like that moment, and also the heavy sequel baiting towards the end of the film. I made a joke at what happens at the end of this film, but let's known that it actually does happen. I sat right there and I shouted at my TV, "Really? Just really? This is what we're going to be doing? Fucking Christ, like, really?" Yes, this actually was the thing that happened at the end of it, and I haven't been upset at a movie like this ever since I saw Marvel's Eternals when they admitted what the Eternals were. I paused the movie and I screamed bloody murder for quite some time. So the story of Morbius is actually pretty decent until mostly like the last waypoint. Kind of reminds me of Venom Let There Be Carnage that I reviewed. I did state that if the script would change in Venom Let There Be Carnage, or if they did the proper rated R version, Venom Let There Be Carnage would have been a more decent film. And I think if this movie was to get an R rating, if there is an R rated script that's out there, it probably would have benefited a lot more. It's not terrible by any means, but maybe it would have benefited a lot more if the film was rated R instead of PG-13. So, how about the cast in this? Actually very surprising for me, and especially when I read the back of the DVD of who was in this movie, I was colored very intrigued and also very surprised, and the cast of this movie does a pretty good job. The characters. Jared Leto was a very surprising pick to play Michael Morbius, and I actually ended up liking his character throughout this entire movie a lot more than some people would probably give him credit for. Playing this very sick, very disabled, and, well, let's be real here, dying man, Jared Leto played it with such a great performance that, likewise, was very great, especially for him. And I also think that Leto did a very great job at performing the man and monster mythology that exists within Michael Morbius. He actually sold the performance very well, in my opinion. Very surprising choice in this movie was choosing Matt Smith to play Lucian, and in all honesty, Matt Smith does an okay job as the villain, but he also comes off as really cartoony. Smith is one hell of a great performer, especially as Doctor Who, and he was my favorite Doctor. But unfortunately, even with that under his belt, doesn't save him from this movie. Adrena Arjona plays Martine in this movie, and she actually does a very amazing job at portraying the light side to the Doctor's dark side. She becomes the heart and soul of the movie and someone that really the audience can look up to, and that's not a bad thing because she's actually a damn good performer, especially in this film. Tyrese Gibson plays a CIA operative in this film, and although Tyrese Gibson is a known name, especially from Fast and the Furious, he is very loosely used in this movie. I love Tyrese Gibson as an actor, but in this movie he was very loosely and very incorrectly used, so yeah. Jared Leto was a very good, very surprising pick, especially in the role as Michael Morbius, who actually sold the role a lot more than was due credit for, especially in this film. And really, I started feeling for Michael Morbius a lot more than some people would give him credit for. Now, that's not saying that he exactly stole the show, so to speak, but there were some areas where I really did enjoy his performance as Michael Morbius. Matt Smith is a very cartoony villain in this movie. He feels like he should be in an episode of a fucking cartoon, like for example Gravity Falls, because he feels that cartoonishly evil, and he probably would fit in the realm of Gravity Falls. He is a great actor, yes. Matt Smith really does have a vibe towards him that is really that great of an actor. And unfortunately, in this film, he comes off as way too cartoony. I like him more as Lucian, the actual human, before he becomes the vampire. He makes Evil Ed from Fright Night look like a freaking good brand of soda compared to this guy who is apparently that really crazy off brand that you just tried at once, makes you feel so weird, and you never go back to it again. Yeah, so Evil Ed, this cartoony vampire from Fright Night, in my opinion, is less cartoony than Matt Smith. Congratulations, Matt Smith. You out-cartooned an actual human cartoon from Fright Night. Congratulations. But I really do like the performance also from the actress that played Martine in this film. She really is the polar opposite to Michael Morbius and really is his center and anchor throughout the entire film. And as I said, I'm a fan of Tyrese Gibson. I find that he is a great actor, especially in roles that he's given. But he is so loosely used here, you will honestly forget that he's in the film. I guess as to make a bad joke, he's that one black guy that you see in like a TV show or movie that you swear that you remember and it just never comes back into play ever again. And I am trying to say that as not as racist as possible. Believe me, I am not a racist person. So if I have offended anybody by saying that, I apologize sincerely. But as a disabled person myself, Jared Leto did an amazing job at portraying this actual really disabled guy who unfortunately becomes a monster, and Leto does give it his best performance. I haven't seen the Boris Karloff Frankenstein movie, unfortunately for me, but he does end up kind of portraying that of an old style monster, something that exists in the world that really it shouldn't. But then again, when you think about the Marvel Universe, especially with guys that can climb walls, guys that can time travel, guys that can grow and shrink at the whim of their every whim, guys that have adamantium claws, and people that can teleport and also regenerate at will, he's not exactly the strangest thing that ever did exist, especially in the Marvel Universe. So, Morbius does have a really interesting cast, and some, aside from Jared Leto and the actress that played Martine, do an amazing job at counteracting each other, and you really do care for both of these characters. You do for Matt Smith, but unfortunately, again, he becomes a cartoony villain later on that you don't care for him as much anymore, and this is coming from a guy who loves his Doctor Who. So, great casting choice, but unfortunately, in some areas, the casting choice just becomes very irrelevant and also at times very forgetful. Final thoughts. Creating the character and bringing it onto the big screen was not an easy job, especially for those that work at Marvel. And then again, they actually did an amazing job at portraying the character. If the script was more forced and if some of the characters were more relevant than they were, I think Morbius would have passed as a very great Marvel film, but unfortunately it falls just short of that line. Morbius is by no means a bad film, absolutely not. But if some of the things were changed in it, I think that Morbius would have gotten a lot more creative criticism than the negative one that it got. Final pop rating. I went into Morbius with a very open mind and really wanted to like it for what it was worth, and what was there on the table was good enough for me. But it did leave me wanting more, especially a different villain for this movie, just like for the first Venom movie. I do admit that it was an interesting choice of the Venom movie villain, but unfortunately, that's not what I was expecting. What I was expecting was Carnage, and that didn't take until the sequel. I do like that the ending credit scene does build up for the Thunderbolts movie, which does actually have me pretty intrigued to see what they're gonna do for the Thunderbolts movie. Though they only have released the two of the names, and whether or not they have released more, I at the moment don't know, but I'm very excited to know. Except that both the Vulture and the Morbius are on the Thunderbolt team. Yes, Michael Keaton does return. So this makes me very happy to see what they exactly will do with the Thunderbolt movie when it gets released. But as Morbius stands, it's a very unique film. It does have a script that very much holds it together, but there are some areas where it does fall apart. The acting, specifically from Jared Leto and his co-star Martine, especially Matt Smith during the beginning, do hold this movie together at a very tight pace. But once eventually that Matt Smith becomes the cartoony villain, it stops becoming held together and starts falling apart very quickly, almost like very almost melting cheese falling off of a pizza. So Morbius is a very unique film, and it comes off very little than what it should mention. Like I said, I really do not hate this film. Despite its flaws, it still holds up pretty good in my opinion. I'm not like the other people that can just come in here and go, fuck this movie, and I'm out of here without even giving it a proper look at and also proper review. So I do actually like it, and there are some moments when when the music, I mean not movie, do come and play and really do help out some of the scenes. I could have done without the special effect of the smoke coming off of the clothes in different colors. Yeah, it worked in the Suicide Squad when Harley Quinn was going around and killing people and they suddenly transformed into flowers. It just doesn't work for a character like Michael Morbius. I do admit, it gives him more of a mystical and horror scene to him because according to mythology, Dracula was able to transform into fog, and which he ends up doing so at some point throughout the movie, in a sense when he's flying. But I have to be gratefully criticism in that this film isn't great, not perfect, but it's not all that bad as people make it out to be. That is why my Rhino Pop rating of Morbius is going to have to be an Ultra Bloodstone, because even though it still sucked, it's a diamond in the rough. This has been my review of the film Morbius. And also, yes, I put the It's Morbin' Time up there because everybody was referencing it back during the time, so I thought it was worthy. I'm not very much into the meme culture and jokes from time to time, but I'll roll with the punches if everybody else does. Thank you guys so very much for watching. If you want to see more reviews, like, just hit the subscribe button. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Follow me at Twitter with the link in the description down below so you can see what I'm kind of like working on, or you might see some hints on some movies that you might actually see me review. And I'll see you guys next time for a Lazy Universe movie review. Thank you for watching.